CO2 GRO is a Toronto-based precision agriculture technology company. GRO offers CO2 foliar spray systems to both indoor and outdoor growers for increasing their crop yield safely and naturally. The company has over 66 million shares outstanding with management ownership at 26%. CO2 GRO Inc. is listed on the TSX Venture under the symbol GROW.
I'm joined now by Aaron Archibald, Chief Operating Officer of CO2 GRO, trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol GROW. That's a good symbol.
It is, thanks.
Aaron, so your business is essentially creating foliar CO2 sprays. And so just to refresh the memory of our audience or to enlighten them for those who might not know, what is the benefit of CO2 as a foliar spray?
Well, any grower knows that adding CO2 to plants is beneficial and they'll grow faster and grow bigger. It's difficult to get CO2 to plants though. So what we do is we dissolve CO2 into water and apply it to the foliage of the plant. That makes it 100% bioavailable and it's driven into the plant by osmotic pressure.
Okay, so interestingly, most greenhouses that beneficiate with CO2 use gas deployment systems.
Absolutely.
And that's got to be a little bit more wasteful because obviously the air is being changed in the environment.
Yeah, most of it gets vented. It's very difficult to create a homogeneic environment and get all the CO2 to every plant. It's like HVAC systems are extremely difficult in building. Most people who have a forced air furnace in their home know that they have a room in the winter that's always colder than the other ones. So by putting it directly into the water and putting that directly onto the plant, every plant gets CO2. And it's just the most bioavailable means of doing it.
Cool. Then you guys, when you were last here, we were talking about this issue where Health Canada had not approved foliar sprayed CO2 for use in commercial gardens by licensed producers in Canada. Has that changed? Of
cannabis. They haven't changed their regulations necessarily. They have let us know that we're approved by GFIA and that we don't contravene anything. We're not a pesticide, we're not a herbicide. I look at it and say we're just a novel means of applying water and CO2 at the same time. Any LP is allowed to water their plant and allowed to use CO2.
Okay, so there's no barrier to any of the LPs using the product?
I think it's a matter of how you interpret the legislation and where and when they can use it in their facilities.
Let me ask you this another way.
All right.
How soon till LPs are using your product over gas-delivered CO2?
I'd say very soon. I think that Health Canada is having a long, hard look at some of their regulations, and I think they did it very quickly and did it with a broad brush. You can water or foliar spray cuttings or clones right now. It's just more mature plants you can't. I think when they recognize that there's no added pesticides, anything harmful, there wouldn't be a problem with spraying water on a plant.
Sure. So I'm curious, how do you get CO2 dissolved in water?
We use a proprietary technology that does it very efficiently. I mean, there's a number of different ways to put dissolved gases into liquids. We just happen to have experience doing it efficiently. We don't need to chill it. We don't need to compress it. Some of that's proprietary, so I won't tell everyone exactly how we do it, but we can do it extremely efficiently at high levels.
Well, okay, so then how often does a greenhouse or a, say, cannabis plant need to be treated with foliar CO2 in order to optimize the growth cycle?
The more times you can apply it, the better. So what we have worked on with people is applying extremely small volumes of water more times per day, because you get more CO2 delivered to the plant that way.
Okay, so is this something that you could actually create an automated misting system within a environment that would be a beneficial way to approach it?
Absolutely. Some of our customers do that now.
Oh, okay, great.
So most overhead booms, you can control the volume of water, the speed of the boom, and the number of times per day that it runs. So it's easily automatable.
And your process is, you say proprietary, but is it patented?
Patent pending.
Patent pending. Great. So at this point, who is using your product?
Well, a number of different growers in the States and Canada.
Okay.
Generally, we do sign a non-disclosure agreement. Lots of people don't necessarily want their name put out there, but
they don't want their competitors to know that they're using the secret
exactly.
weapon.
But we currently have commercial operations in Canada and the U.S.
Okay. And how much does it cost? I mean, let's pick a unit of square footage. Let's say per 1,000 square feet. Is it easy to say, well, this is how much the cost is going to be per month per 1,000 square feet?
It is pretty easy. We do a scoping survey with them. We have an engineering group that works with them and looks at whether or not their infrastructure is set up to use the technology, what might need to be tweaked, and then we come to a commercial arrangement, and we usually charge by the square foot per month. We can do it quarterly as well, but it's a per square foot or per square meter in Europe charge.
So unlike software as a service, this is like CO2 as a service
Yes,
model?
it is. Yeah, it's a site license / lease model that we're doing.
Oh, very interesting. And at some point, will you have a retail option available for those growing at home?
I could see that in the future. It would be a matter of engineering it down to a small enough size and a price point where a home grower could use it. Right now, I think it's not very feasible, but
really?
I could see it in the near future.
Okay.
Just from a cost standpoint.
This is me with my hand up.
Yeah.
I would like to grow.
Okay.
Cutting to my NDI. This is our garden, my garden in my own home right now that is growing hydroponically, and I would love the opportunity to treat 2 plants with foliar spray and 2 plants without and see how the difference is in a measured basis.
Well, as we talked about before we got on air, I'll get you some equipment to use for a trial.
Great.
So you just have to share the data with me.
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. Okay, Aaron, then how does the revenue model, the business model of the company work then? You're saying you have a per square foot plus a licensing. How does that sort of what per user, what's your, I guess I'm babbling now. What is the projected growth of the revenue in the company?
That's hard to say. The market is so big. The plant for food market is $9 trillion per year.
Right.
The focus is cannabis right now in Canada. It's very popular, but we can help all plants grow. Okay. So whether it's peppers or lettuce, it's almost hard to measure what our revenues are going to be like in 2 years, simply because we have so much opportunity in front of us.
Sure. What's to stop me from just spraying club soda on my plants?
You could. Technically, you'd be in violation of the process patent, but
really?
Also the cost to buy club soda and spray it on your plants would be
pretty high.
High, extremely high.
Interesting.
Extremely inefficient.
And is the carbon content of club soda equal or similar to that, and the bioavailability, does it even apply?
Well, not really. I mean, they chill soft drinks and put it in under extreme pressure. That's why you see bubble nucleation, so it bubbles out. If you shake it and open it, it explodes. So that'll tend to drive the CO2 out of it. And that's part of the experience of drinking a carbonated drink, is you like the sense of the bubbles in it. So what we do is different in that you won't actually see bubbles, and bubbles won't nucleate out. It's done on a molecular level, and it stays in solution so that it can be utilized. If it comes out of solution, it's just not bioavailable anymore.
Sure. What kind of increase in yield in percentage terms can one expect from applying foliar CO2 relative to not applying any CO2?
We've seen, I'd say on average, we've seen between 25 and 30% increase versus standard gassing, so 800 to 1200 ppm in a room.
Mm-hmm. And then now with Health Canada reconsidering some of its regulations over foliar applied, let's call it a nutrient for lack of a better descriptor, is that something that they now have to specifically give you the ability, or an LP the ability to say, okay, you can use that now without risk of it resulting in a negative test result from your product? Is there any risk of that?
There isn't. Plants take in CO2, and they keep the C, which is the carbon, which is a building block for plants, and they respire out O2, much the same way we breathe in air with O2 and respire out CO2. Mm-hmm. So there'll be no residual CO2 left in a plant because it becomes carbon, becomes the plant. Mm-hmm. So really no way to test for CO2 in a plant.
Right. I guess as carbon-based life forms, we have no problem dealing with carbon in our cannabis.
And that's why CO2 makes plants grow bigger and faster and yield more.
So I guess then the inflection point for your company is going to be when widespread adoption of foliar sprayed CO2 at the commercial level takes root, the pun intended, in the cannabis industry broadly.
Yes, yeah. And, like many Canadian technologies, sometimes you go abroad before you get adoption at home.
Right.
It's an unfortunate thing, but you see it a lot. We have a phenomenal amount of interest internationally. U.S. hemp growers can't keep up with the number of phone calls we're getting right now. Since it's been legalized federally in the States, they're really, really interested, especially outdoor growers.
Right.
It's the only means to apply CO2 to a plant outdoors. Is by putting it in the water first and applying it to the plant.
Either that or putting a coal-fired hydroelectric plant next door.
It'd be pretty inefficient to blow it on because the wind would just take it away. So by putting it in water, we can supply outdoor growers with CO2, hoop houses, shade houses, things that historically, like structures that have historically not been able to use CO2 in them.
Right. What about competitors? Do you have who do you have in the competitive realm?
Touch wood as I say it. Right now, there are no competitors. It's a novel technology. No one had ever thought to do it before, so we're first to market with it, and that's why we've gone through the process of getting the IP. But I think more importantly, it's going to be first to market, having some trade secrets, and penetrating the market, and becoming the company that's known as the CO2 foliar spray technology.
Interesting as ever, Aaron. We're going to continue to follow the story, and I can't wait to try it out on my own plants. Thanks for joining me today.
All right, thanks very much.